heard a great deal about Justice Jackson here, and here we are at the center of a law school. But I hope you remember that Justice Jackson never went to law school, and neither did President Lincoln. And yet look how far they got. So you have to do other things than just go to this law school, as has been indicated here, to make a true impression on the future world, which we hope will have in it more justice and more peace, hard as that is to come by. One of the specific questions we were asked is how did we became Nuremberg prosecutors. When Justice Jackson made his written report to President Truman after having talked to him orally, he indicated that he thought a great deal needed to be done. And he laid out a plan. And this was published in this broad outlines in the newspapers. As soon as I could, I returned to the Office of Strategic Services, where I had worked during the war for some time. And incidentally, I might say this, that I had worked in the war in training Germans to become agents to jump into Germany, which eventually 14 out of the 16 of those that we trained did. And I never believed in collective guilt, having worked with those people. I believed in looking toward individual guilt. Well, after I heard of Justice Jackson's report, I immediately went in to see the General Counsel of OSS, Jim Donovan, and I had never met him before. And we talked for about 15 minutes, and within another 15 minutes, a half hour, I was hired to engage in the work of OSS in helping prepare for the war crimes trials. What did I think I was doing? What were my expectations? I thought that I was helping prepare for the greatest criminal trial of all time, and that's what it was. I hoped that I would be able to do some things in collecting evidence, since I spoke some German, that would give me a little leg up on other people that didn't speak German. But I thought that I would have a hard time getting very close to the top in the structure, because after all, here's the Justice of the Supreme Court. He's the head of this, and he's employed a lot of top people who are full colonels and who have established themselves much more than I had. But so I had no idea that I would eventually appear before the International Military Tribunal. And that came about partly because I had worked on labor cases as a trial lawyer before the war. And in OSS, I found a document with the help of Franz Neumann, who wrote the book Behemoth, where a Nazi leader that was close to the defendant Lai bragged about how they had taken over the trade unions on May 2nd, 1933. Another example of the fact that Germans were also the first victims of the Nazis and exploited by them. I developed this into a brief with the help of some trade union leaders, and a number of these trade union leaders made affidavits. Not one of them was called for cross-examination at the Nuremberg trial. There was nothing that they said which could really be denied. I was glad that the brief I wrote about this was the first brief that was circulated to the rest of the lawyers, and it's published in Nazi Conspiracy and Aggression as one of the early briefs. And of that I'm very proud. Did the experience live up to my expectations? Well, in many respects, of course, my expectations are overreached because I was called upon to make two presentations before the International Tribunal. One against Walter von Schirach, the Hitler Youth leader and the Gauleiter of Vienna. He received a sentence of 20 years. The second case was against Hans Fritzsche, the head of the radio division of the propaganda ministry. He was found not guilty. So I didn't feel I'd done as good a job as I would have liked with respect to that man who helped encourage Germans to hate Jews and to hate people he classified as Bolshevists, and of course also meant liberals. And I found myself quite unhappy when that decision came down in court, so my expectations were not 100% lived up to. Another question was, how did the trial affect my personal life? Well, it affected it a great deal. I spent over 6 years working on war crimes trials, and included the part after the trials was over, in the editing of the official green volumes called Nazi Conspiracy and Aggression, 15 volumes. The other thing is that my wife came to Nuremberg during the last month just for a 4 or 5 day visit. I met her, and within a year we were married, and that affected my life a great deal. Another question that asked us was, would we, if we were younger, accept a position as a prosecutor with the Yugoslav International Tribunal? Well, several of us here, Walter Rockler and I don't know if anybody else, was asked down to by the State Department to talk to some of the people who were planning to go over there. And I must say that I came away not feeling too happy because I didn't think they knew very much about what they were really trying to do. And I have seen, unfortunately, nothing since which I feel is a real plan as to how they're going to go about doing things with these obvious war criminals in Serbia and parts of Yugoslavia, other parts of Yugoslavia. Among other things, several people at that meeting were against the idea of trial in absentia. They may find themselves with many of the criminals that they are willing to identify in a position of escape, having gone into hiding. If these people are given notice in the press and on the TV and so on, why shouldn't they be tried just because they're in hiding? I think the greatest challenge to all of us is how do we put more enforcement into what we have talked about as a growing international law. And I take it that's the major reason we're really here. And on that note, I'll close.